And so without further ado, Ritu, welcome aboard, CEO of VONQ. And it's so wonderful to have you here. And with that, I'll let you introduce yourself, VONQ, and you can take over the sharing of the screen.
Thank you very much for having me. I think everyone's dialing in from the US. Is that accurate?
For the most part, I
For the
think.
most part, yep.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Jeff and David. Thank you for your kind words, David. I think you've done enough about my introduction, so I won't spend too long talking about it. Just that I will make a simple promise. I will try to keep this session as practical as I can. AI in TA is full of noise right now, and most of it doesn't help you run a hiring function on a Tuesday morning or afternoon. So today we'll try our best to focus on what actually changes in talent acquisition when AI moves from content to workflow, and when it stops being something you use and starts being something that executes work alongside your team. And I keep saying this, the winners won't be teams with the most AI tools. They'll be the teams with the cleanest workflows, clearest signals, and the most important, the highest trust. Shift is much bigger than any one company. It's happening across the entire industry. And you can see it in some of these numbers. 3 out of 4 TA leaders now expect skills to replace degrees as the primary signal. That's a fundamental rethink of how we decide who gets the opportunity. And at the same time, almost every employer is already using AI somewhere in the hiring. And most ATS platforms now have also built AI in their technology, which means this isn't coming, it's already here. But here's where the tension is. 74% of employers still say they can't find the talent they need. So we have more technology than ever and still less clarity. Which brings us to the real question. If skills are the new currency and AI is helping evaluate those skills, what signals are we actually trusting? And the honest answer is a lot of this isn't being driven by curiosity. It's being driven by fear or pressure. And most organizations right now are operating in a very different reality than even 2 or 3 years ago. We all know that, and I'm sure you'll relate to this. Budgets are tighter, teams are leaner, expectations haven't gone down, they're constantly going up. So automation stops being a nice to have anymore. It becomes survival. And companies are constantly asking, how do we hire faster with fewer people and still stay competitive? And at the same time, AI itself is moving incredibly fast, faster than most organizations can comfortably absorb, which is creating this strange tension where the technology is ready, but the workflows or the trust and the operating models are still kind of catching up. And nowhere do you feel that tension more directly than in the day to day reality of recruiters. And I'm sure many of you probably are feeling this tension constantly. And this is where the penny truly drops. If AI is a signal engine, most of the systems we've been using weren't actually built for signal in the first place. They were built for processes. If you just take an ATS, and again, I love my ATS friends, so I'm not throwing dirt at anybody, but it solved compliance. It gave us a system of record, but it didn't really help us make better decisions. We've all seen this, and I'm sure I'd love to hear your voice in a few minutes. Thousands of candidates sitting in the database, and yet when a new role opens, what happens? Recruiters still start from scratch. Not because they actually want to, but because they don't trust the signal they have from the ATS. And then you look at recruitment advertising. We automated job distribution, we made it faster to post everywhere, but we didn't make it smarter. We just learned how to spend budget faster, often on the wrong audiences. And then our friends CRM, they promised warm pipelines. But in reality, most went cold because recruiters didn't have the time to maintain them and candidates didn't engage. So the issue was never effort. It was that our tech helped us manage activity, but not actually improve judgment. And this is why AI truly matters. not to automate broken processes faster, but to actually finally give recruiters something they've never really had before: more trusted signal. So let me describe what I see in the industry. Almost every TA conversation or TA leader we speak with, this kind of captures it cleanly for me personally. Recruiters, on the one hand, are drowning in volume, starving for quality, dealing with relentless time pressure from their hiring managers. And often they're carrying a tech stack that adds complexity without removing any of their work. On top of that, if you think about, there's an emotional toll. When candidates get ghosted, recruiters really feel it. And that employer brand feels it too in return. And if you look at the flip side from a candidate's perspective, the story is equally blunt: application friction, repetitive steps, limited feedback, silence, and growing mistrust of how decisions are getting made by organizations or employers. And this is why efficiency alone is not the goal anymore. If use AI only to go faster, you'll go faster into worse trust. The goal is actually not just speed, but it's plus and plus. It's speed plus clarity plus actual fairness. So let me put it back to the audience. If you had to pick one in terms of whether it's speed, whether it's clarity, whether it's volume, what's hurting you the most? Is it volume? Is it too little quality? Or is it too much friction in the actual process?
Certainly not volume. But volume's the problem, right? And we've got so many candidates now. It's getting to that signal. I think that's the leading question. It's getting to the right candidate. No, those technology stacks that we've all implemented has not, to your point, Ritu, has not accomplished that from my POV. In fact, has inadvertently, with the advent of AI on both sides of this equation, caused an even more cluttered process and workflow.
More noise, so much more
More
noise,
noise.
David.
Exactly, Frank.
Yep, you're right.
Feel free to raise your hands, guys, if you want to ask Ritu questions.
I
She's right
love
here.
hearing other people's voices. I hate hearing my own.
Well, here comes Andrew.
I think that there's really almost a cross here, and it's really about time pressure and process fatigue, and that's that you have that on the recruiter side, but I think that actually replicates on the candidate side,
Yep.
where there, in both cases, we look at an overload of the number of applicants that are coming in, but at the same time, we're looking at an overload and pressure for candidates to execute those applications. And in both cases, the end result is recruiters who feel like they don't have the resources that they need, or they're begging for artificial intelligence, automation, or assistance to execute the work. They're saying no much more than they had, which is demotivating. And that demotivation then comes over the to the applicants who are applying to hundreds of jobs, feeling ghosted and feeling ghosted or seeing constant replies, wondering when those replies are. And I think we've created an entity which is rooted in we can help people find jobs and they feel good about those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Christian, you want to jump in with something?
Yeah, real quick. I think it actually crosses over, right? I saw a lot of people saying quality, and I 100% agree with that. But it's getting the quality candidates as quick as you can. So there's kind of
Mm-hmm.
an intersection there of where we need to go to. And I loved your point about the ATS. It is 100% and always has been a compliance system wrapped up as a, pseudo candidate relationship management system. And I think part of the problem is how do we get this technology to actually expand that ATS to be a useful tool outside of just a compliance tool? Because companies spend millions of dollars generating millions of candidates within this database that they never see again or hear
Totally.
from again. And same from the candidates, right? So it comes back to the candidate side of it, is that you apply for these positions and you get the sorry, not today, but we'll keep you in our database for later. And we all know that's bullshit. Recruiters don't have the time to go through and sort through all of those people in an effective way. So we just don't do it.
Yep.
Couldn't agree
Agree.
more.
Bill.
Yeah, I put a comment in the chat there. One of the things that really burns me, the drowning in volume. My take on this, it is self-inflicted. We all have data analysts in large organizations that can say, you know what, to hire a front desk, a housekeeper, a physician, a nurse, to hire one takes 60 applications. Well, if that's what it does, then cut the posting off at the appropriate time. There's no reason for hundreds or thousands of applications. But you know why recruiters like it? There's comfort. There's comfort in numbers. I got so many. And then they turn around and talk out the other side of their mouth and go, well, I can't do that stuff. I got so much admin work. I got all these applications I got to get through. It's self-inflicted.
Yep. A lot in this industry is self-inflicted. But we'll get to some real life examples on how some organizations are really embracing AI to remove some of those noise in the industry. Ken, I see you've got your hand raised.
Hi there. Thank you for joining us. And welcome. After 14 ATS implementations, including one for GlaxoSmithKline in the UK and the US, I can say, and I agree, concur with others that, I've been with organizations where, the TA budget spent millions of dollars attracting candidates, right? You put them in the database, you do have the compliance, you've got some workflow and some, what I would used to call mediocre reporting capabilities, right? In my mind, that one of the huge downfalls within the ATS system itself was the search functionality, right? It was never robust. Not one single ATS that I've worked with had a robust internal search. Yes, you might have 500,000 applicants in your database, but you're stuck with a little bit of Boolean and maybe a couple filters. You're really not going to be that successful. Trying to get the boomerangs or trying to, kind of resurface talent that already expressed interest. So what do? We spend more money on attracting new candidates all the time, right? I agree also in the volume, right? Aspects that, particularly as I call it today, when candidates whitewash their resume to match the posting so they think they're going to get through faster, all they've done is created more noise and volume in the system, which doesn't help actually differentiate the candidate. I also think there's a dynamic where many recruiters have never trusted the ATS to make those independent decisions, right? So there might even be a weighting, call it a scoring or something else going on, and the recruiter's like, "No, I'll take my 30-second look or a minute and look at the resumes really quick myself and just see," so that maybe somebody answered a rec-specific question wrong, and they didn't mean to, but now it's stuck on the record, and I'm going to bypass somebody that really is a good candidate. So I think there's a lot of elements particular to the ATS systems as they were designed for compliance and a little bit of reporting and some workflow that have hindered the process.
Yep.
I think there's an overlay of recruiters that have a different level of experience, right? So you have very senior recruiters who are amazing at what they do, right? You've got some new folks that really don't quite have all the skills that maybe others do, right? To interpret, if somebody can do this, they can also do these other things, right? And now you've got AI in there and you're saying, well, are the new recruiters the ones that are going to get this really fast and get it right? Or do you have the experienced people now that can leverage this new tool? And even though you might get the signals right and get the candidates that are qualified, you still have the old technology that, is still housing it, right? And so I think there's a lot of dynamics at play.
Indeed.
Wow. You bet. Thanks. Jim.
Yeah, Ken, I like a lot of what Ken says. We have solved those. There are tools that can search ATSs, but that means the person buying the ATS with a long-term contract has to go to finance and go, stop your stupid stuff. Let me actually use it, or let me integrate, which means we actually have to have HR tech involved, not doing some sprint 6 months. It can take 6 to 9 months for a large corporate internal team to do a basic integration or landing page. This is it's a focus of priorities. The tech is very much there. But Ken, you put in something else that's a bigger issue. We've trained candidates to treat this like a game. We have taught them that the point is to get the interview and the job, not to understand what it is to work. Because why wouldn't they learn to game? Why wouldn't they play it? I've been doing some research. I dropped some before. I put this out a couple of weeks ago. The generative AI that's everyone's using for the resumes, if you go to Indeed and you search XX%, you will now find 750,000 resumes where someone just put hit sales targets, exceeded it by XX% or managed XX people. It has been growing exponentially. It used to be 10,000 a week. It's now more than 40,000 a week. They have poisoned their own database. It's now showing up in your databases because someone threw AGI up there. And when a candidate gets the chance to see that profile, they just click, oh, sure, I'll add these lines to my resume. And no one ever tells them to edit that XX% out. So now you got the problem of these new resumes, not even the ones that are rewritten for bad job descriptions. We've got junk inside of our internal ATSs now because we taught candidates that the goal was to go very fast, get the application, and some magic recruiter will sit there and go through 2,000 at the same time. I mean, this is an own goal.
Wow. Well, Ritu, welcome to our jungle.
But it's cathartic. It's cathartic to hear so many voices and that everybody is in the same place and same challenges. And Jim, you're right, but there are tools now who can resolve some of these noise and signal. And I won't put Bill, our CTPO, on the spot today, but if there is an opportunity at some point, I'd love for us to look at what we are doing and how we are solving some of these challenges. But in the spirit of just moving along and sharing a little bit more about solving some of these challenges, let me see if I can actually play this video.
No doubt that this is a challenging time.
If I had to think of one word that would describe the state of talent acquisition, it would be overwhelming.
In this job market, both candidates and recruiters are navigating uncharted challenges.
I think the biggest challenge that recruiters have is really making sure that they're getting that quality of hire.
Recruiters are asked to do more with less. The candidate experience is broken. The recruiter experience is suffering.
If we get more effective and productive with artificial intelligence, saving us time in other areas, can we reinvest that back into greater efforts in diversifying the talent pool?
How do we use intelligence? How do we use AI to provide a process that's more fair, it's more human, and it's more efficient?
How do we get more efficient at what we do? How do we deal with smaller, tighter volumes of much higher relevance?
To me, it looked like a fundamental change in how people and work could be matched.
This is the real foundation for attracting top talent and building employer brands that thrive in the new era of work.
Using AI interviews, AI and various other places in the recruitment process.
There are steps. Each step can be picked up by an agent. And that's why I'm super excited about what we're seeing today.
The acceleration of AI adoption across the hiring journey is transforming experiences for everyone.
And it needs leaders who are ready to back the change.
And I think some of these leaders are on this call today. What TA teams are telling me consistently is stop selling me AI. Really what they're looking for is relief and quality signals. Take work off my plate. Someone mentioned long integrations, long cycles of integration implementations. It's really take that work off my plate, improve candidate experience, make hiring managers easier to deal with because the pipeline is clearer. And recruiters want fewer resets, fewer can you just requests, less manual screening, and more time for actual judgment, influence, and closing. So when you're evaluating AI, don't ask what can it do. Ask what does it remove, what decision does it improve, and what risks does it introduce? And that question leads me perfectly to how we're thinking about this whole jungle, as David mentioned. This is our North Star. For recruiters, it means no longer drowning in noise, spending more meaningful time in meaningful conversations and decisions. For candidates, it really means simpler applications, less gaming the system, faster and more respectful communication, and a process that feels, frankly, more human. It's feeling less and less human. And for TA leaders, it means consistency at scale and trust across teams, locations, and hiring managers. And the key line on this slide for me, what really matters this isn't actual wishful thinking anymore. Responsible AI can make it actually possible, but responsible is the operative word here. Otherwise, you just speed up more dysfunction. So going to a little bit more on how we are solving for all these challenges. So it's a really, if you think about, we launched Echo, our agentic AI flow from application to shortlist in minutes last year, after having deployed across many global organizations for a period of a year in development. So we have a lot of proof points, which we'll speak about a little bit today. But how does it really work? One, the candidate applies, whether it's from a job ad or even a careers page, to the AI agent asks for additional information. It's really about give the AI agent the mission, find me so many qualified high intent candidates or applications. So what does agent will take the additional information and only when needed, and it can also provide actual feedback in real time to candidates, which reduces drop off. That's such an important part of this whole hiring journey. 3, AI screening and interview happens in natural language. So it's not a rigid form with 90 fields in an ATS. It's a structured conversation. 4, candidate gets scored, prioritized, and delivered back into the ATS to the recruiter who can act swiftly. Again, speed does matter, as someone alluded to it earlier. But this is probably the most important message I can give in this entire 1 hour. There are 2 paths if you think about trust and transparency. Path 1, AI with low transparency, no visibility into decisions, unclear ranking logic, rejections without explanation, limited control, no audit trail, which I know matters massively in the US and, of course, absolutely in the EU. That doesn't just annoy candidate, it creates organizational risk. We all know that. We're seeing a lot in the industry and a lot in the media right now around that. Path 2, AI designed for trust. Candidates are informed when AI is used. Recommendations are explainable. Humans actually make the final decision. And the focus is really on skills and qualifications with full auditability. And here, it's really a practical test. We talk to our customers about if a candidate or a hiring manager or anyone in your legal team asks, why was this person prioritized? Can you answer that in plain language? If you can scale this. If you can't, you will eventually hit a wall, whether it's with adoption, whether it's with compliance, or with, of course, a reputational damage. And this is why at VONQ, we're absolutely obsessed with explainability and dossier style outputs. It's not just a feature. It's actually, I say it, it's our license to actually operate in this industry. So this is where trust stops being a principle. I'm sure some of you may have heard of Warden AI. We started an independent audit with Warden AI in December last year. And I swear I didn't sleep for 3 weeks almost. Every day I would ask Bill Fisher, did we get the results? Did we get the results? Did we get the results? But that's how important it was for us to ensure that we tick every single box when it comes to, is it auditable? Is it explainable? Is it transparent? Because one of the first questions we hear from customers is very simple. They ask, if the AI recommends, can you show me why? And if you can't answer that, the whole thing falls apart. Recruiters, of course, absolutely won't trust it. Candidates shouldn't trust it. And increasingly, regulators won't allow it. So everything we've built is designed around explainability. Not just a score, but a clear explanation. What skills matched, where the gaps are, what AI saw, and just as importantly, what it didn't consider. And the second part is really around fairness. And this isn't about personality profiling or scraping signals that shouldn't be used. It's strictly role-related criteria based on a job description or a job posting. It's on skills, capability, job relevance, and it's independently audited continuously. It's not just once you do an audit, it's finished. It's every month the audit continues. Because in the end, AI doesn't create trust. Transparency does. I was at a conference this morning for Greenhouse in London, and they spoke a lot about exactly that piece around should we tell candidates, should we disclose to candidates when AI is used? Absolutely yes. And also not just AI is used, but how AI will be used to screen them or score them. So now let me make this real with Adecco. I'm sure many or most of you may have heard of Adecco, one of the largest global staffing companies. And their operating model is really around speed. Adecco lives and dies by speed. They're hiring for high volume roles constantly, whether it's warehouse operatives, whether it's forklift drivers, whether it's logistics, manufacturing staff, customer support, name it. In these roles, the best candidates is often gone within 24 to 48 hours. So speed isn't a vanity metric for them, it's their competitive advantage. And the problem isn't attracting applicants, as we all know. It's what happens next. As recruiters are constantly saying we buried in early screening, reading CVs, chasing candidates, and humans have inherent bias. Let's not forget that. Asking the same questions over and over. Can we do this? Can we be fair? And whilst that's happening, the people, of course, disappear because they've gone to the next job. So the real bottleneck wasn't qualification. This is where AI changed the rhythm for them. The moment someone applies, VONQ's AI engages them immediately on whether it's an WhatsApp, whether it's an SMS, whether it's an email. It asks the key questions: availability, licenses, shift preferences, right to work, just the usual, which we call sometimes knockout questions. Within less than 2 hours, the candidate is qualified, scored, sitting in the actual ATS with a recruiter ready summary. And all summaries look alike. So you're playing from the same level playing field and not looking at 20 different CVs with 20 different looks and feels. So instead of starting the day with 200 unknown applicants, the recruiter at Adecco starts with a shortlist they can act on. And that's where the impact comes from. Over 3,300 applicants processed for one job, over 400 hours of recruiter time freed up, and about 70 hours saved per role. Imagine the scale at Adecco. I'm talking a lot. I hate my voice, but I will have two or three more slides and then we'll open up for conversation. The next one, software one, different scenario, different context, but the same operating model. It's a completely different hiring challenge to Adecco. This isn't volume for operational roles. This is specialist tech hiring, cloud engineers, software developers, niche roles across global markets. And one example of at Software One was they opened a single engineering role in India. Oh my gosh. And within days, they have 400 plus applications, not even days, within hours. Sounds great. We've got so many applications, but most aren't even the right fit. And recruiters were spending hours, sometimes days, trying to figure out who's actually worth even speaking to. While that's happening, the best candidates are already moving on. Same scenario. So the problem here wasn't attracting talent again. It was really identifying the right talent really fast without actually compromising on quality or fairness. And this is where VONQ's AI shifted the balance for them. Every applicant gets screened. The AI runs structured conversations, evaluates their skills against that job for the software engineer role in India, creates a candidate dossier for every single candidate, strengths, weaknesses, or opportunities, gap analysis, readiness, intent, skills, all which I'm not showing you a demo today, but I think it will come to life if you ever see a demo. So the recruiter doesn't start with 400 unknown CVs. They start with a prioritized shortlist they can trust, they can explain, they can understand. And the impact is very clear. Over 850 applicants screened across campaigns, 34% faster time to hire, 43% faster time to offer, and 92% completion rate. That's where the biggest challenge lies with ATS is the dropout rates. So this is where you can tell that candidates stay engaged. But the real shift is really about confidence. Recruiters aren't filtering anymore. They're actually selecting, and hiring managers are making decisions based on actual clear signals, not guesswork. And the final story I'll tell, this is one of Bill's favorite projects because it challenged a big assumption. We were working with a rapidly growing, or are working actually, with a rapidly growing Dutch supermarket chain. It's a European growing supermarket chain, actually, Dutch headquartered, hiring thousands of warehouse and delivery roles every month. Speed mattered, but what they cared about the most was consistency and candidate experience. They already had something that worked. Their best phone screeners were excellent, but they knew exactly what to ask of each candidate, how to listen, when to probe deeper. The problem was you can't clone your best recruiters always. Someone made that comment. Are you experienced recruiter or not so experienced recruiter? So instead of asking us to automate screening, they asked us to capture what made their screeners great and turn that into AI. They gave us years of call transcripts, training guides, scoring frameworks. We studied the patterns, the orders of questions, the tone, the judgment, and we built an AI that didn't behave like a machine. It behaved like their actual best recruiter. And the result is powerful. We're rolling it out in Germany now. Candidates were screened within minutes of applying in their own language, any time of the day, from chat to screen to web to email to phone. Quality stayed on par with human screening, but now it's scaled consistently. And that's really the shift. The real value of AI isn't about replacing human excellence. It's preserving it and making it available at scale. I have two more slides, but I'm very self-conscious that I've talked at you, all of you. So I'm going to take a pause and just see how this resonates, what questions you have, and and then get the conversation going.
I'll jump in. I'm sure others will as well. I want to follow up on, I'm seeing a couple comments that are resonating with me in the chat room about back to your accountability and audit ability. As you may know, we're as a group, we're tracking very closely the eightfold ISIMs and Workday litigations. I assume those are on your radar as well. And the question I have, or the topic of conversation, is about permissioning. And a fear that I probably am not alone in having is how are we going to handle? I mean, it looks like we're going to leverage some credit fair market thingy legislation protections that will require vendors to know that we gave permission, perhaps, for things like for our data to be used in stack ranking. So I guess I'll just go there, Ritu, and just ask you. You've kind of already answered, but maybe expand upon. Are you concerned about those litigations? Are you tracking the eightfold ISIMS case specifically? And do you feel like you guys have a proper set of protections? And I'll just echo what Bill said: is it auditable by the consumer? I mean, can the consumer see in our world, the candidate see what we've concluded about them? And so I'll shut up now.
No, great questions. I will put Bill Fisher on the spot and get him to give some thoughts on that. Either for the latter, the last question, not quite. So I'll just say that from a candidate perspective, but I'll pass it on to Bill to see if he can help me answer that question.
Yeah, when I think about what Eightfold was solving, and I don't know if they stepped away from this or not, but a real challenge with screening candidates at scale is that with the semantic search tech that was state of the art 4 years ago, there just wasn't that much data to go off of. So you have a job description that you would do a semantic parse. So locations, job descriptions, skills, certificates. So then you would have a candidate CV. And so what was happening is when companies wanted to do parse with greater granularity at scale and score and rank and assess, they started looking at third-party data sets to supplement that data. And so we saw that kind of behavior emerging. And I think it's just because there was a lack of enough signal to really help a company get to a short list. And so what we've seen is we've built a system that kind of has transformer architecture, vector databases, but there's so much more information that's on a job description than is captured with traditional parsers. It's the same with the CV, but we also introduced screening questions in an interview. So we're capturing a lot more data than just on those documents as well. And so that's kind of our replacement for going to data sets that are outside of the process. But I mean, like a fun example is if there's a job where you need to move a washing machine, but there's nothing in there about the skills required or the ability to lift or any of that. So none of those are called out specifically as job requirements. But with a large language model, if it sees this person needs to be able to move a washing machine, it knows that that's something it needs to screen the candidates against, even if it's not semantically pulled out and used for it. And so it really opens up the opportunity for skills-based hiring in a way that didn't really exist before, because these documents are so much more rich. There's so much more data than we thought. And again, when you think about like semantic search, you kind of look at like a word, you look at the words surrounding it, and you try to determine what that word means in the context of 2 or 3 words around it. But with large language models, it can be the word, the surrounding words, within the sentence, within the paragraph, within the document, within a collection of documents, and you get a much deeper, richer understanding of these candidates. And that's also why we went to a scoring system instead of a matching system. So we're not just kind of looking, is there, are we seeing the same keywords in both of these documents indicating this person's a match? But we actually try to understand, do these candidates have the ability to perform these jobs, and then score them across 15 to 20 vectors. So I don't know if that made this more confusing or not.
Bill, thanks for jumping in with that. And to David's question, will the consumer, the candidate, know that this AI, this tool is different than Workday and the legal or litigation challenges there, and Eightfold and the litigation challenges there?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So we leave that up to our hiring companies, how much data they want to share with the candidates. But again, something we're doing differently, though, is we're not just saying this candidate is a gold candidate, this candidate is silver, this candidate is bronze. What we do is for every role, we have an AI, it's a group assessment agent. It'll look at the job description, it'll figure out 15 different vectors it wants to evaluate all the candidates against, and it sets a criteria for each of those 15 vectors. Then an AI reviews the candidate's CV, reviews their answers to screening questions, reviews their transcripts, and across those 15 vectors, using only that data provided by the candidate, it scores those candidates. And so they get a score for each of those, but the assessment criteria is clear, but also the information that was used to determine that assessment criteria is clear. And so we think this offers kind of a layer of transparency and explainability that you don't have in other systems. So we're very comfortable allowing candidates to review how their application is scored. In fact, we think it'd be a welcome addition into the process, because if there is something we missed, it provides an opportunity for them to provide that additional information.
So you're letting the candidate know that.
So we are comfortable allowing candidates, but not all hiring companies want to expose that screening, if that makes sense.
What a dilemma you guys are living in. Now that I'm thinking about it, Bill, that was great. That answered a lot for me, but it also poses a real challenge, Ritu, for all of us that are in this industry to operate with proprietary value propositions and building a proprietary model in a world that expects 100% transparency. So the black box has to be completely eliminated, and you have to operate in this open source world, showing the world how you're doing what you're doing, at the same time being transparent to the consumers of your product on both sides. And to Bill's point, allowing customers, downstream customers, to make some decisions, which sounds to me like the Workday dilemma, where Workday is kind of pushing the responsibility to the end user customers, and they're pushing back. And so I applaud you guys being in the sandbox, duking this out. And Bill, I think that was a great answer. And to the extent you can drive transparency out to the candidate, I think, Frank, that probably negates a lot of the objection a candidate could possibly have. If they know they've been scored a certain way and the algorithms are clear and they can parse them and they can see them, at least, understand them, then I think some of that black box concern that led to those lawsuits goes away, right?
Yeah, I would be proactive, Bill, and tell candidates, tell the consumer, here's why you're different. Here's what we do, and make sure that's clear, so that even if your clients 100% want to keep certain things hidden, it won't come back to you. You want to be really clear and transparent about how this works.
Heavy-handed, unasked for, unsolicited advice is maybe you don't make it an option.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
That's someone's got to make a stand here and say, this is how this is all going to work, period. And we're not going to let customers or even individuals dictate how this should operate. I mean, you guys have EU regulations. I got to think this is going to end up there anyway. So why not just go there and be there, live there, get first advantage, engage the consumer. If they're going to solicit litigation from consumers, then we probably have to give the consumers what they want, and what they say they want is transparency. So I think I'm echoing what you said, Bill. So I think
no. So I like all that. I'm comfortable that under kind of the frameworks that have been set forward in a lot of these different jurisdictions, that we have a system that meets those obligations under transparency and explainability. But I'm also aware that for hiring companies, if somebody doesn't get a job, if somebody gets if they get a mark on a paper at school and they feel like it's a little unfair, they can eat up a lot of teacher time trying to get answers on it. And so I think they're rightly, there is some concern that if you have 1,000 applicants and only one person gets hired, you have 999 other applicants who might want to argue that they deserve a higher grade than they got. So I think we need to find a way to kind of manage that side of it. But we like a transparent world. We think AI tools, even though like these large language models, they're very good at black box algos, they also offer the opportunity for this transparency and explainability.
I think that's so spot on. And my experience in recruiting and in school is I don't really care about transparency when I got a C or an A. I don't really care unless I get rejected, and then I care, and then I really don't want to hear the reasons. I just want the transparency to exist. So if I'm you guys, I would just go to it. There it is. Here's the algorithm. I've been saying this about things like LinkedIn for years. Show us the algo.
Yep. Be transparent about it and be proactively transparent and beat everyone to the punch.
Just crazy ideas from the peanut gallery. Suzanne Foz.
We're going to have to change your name to David Pollyanna, man.
Here we go.
Absolutely.
You tell me what candidate pool wants transparency? You guys have been building stuff for two. They don't want that. It's the last thing. It's exactly what Bill said. They'll go crazy. When you open up an algorithm and show it, people go through and say how it's not really. It gets so much worse.
So good.
It gets so much worse.
You got to do something here because regulations are coming. It's a matter of time. Suzanne, then Bill.
Quick change of direction here, if I may. I would guess, aside from myself, that there are others on this call as well, too, that work more from the agency side of things rather than in-house corporate recruiting or leadership. And I'm wondering if you have any business challenges or use cases laid out that would be more applicable, I guess, to the true passive recruiting that people like myself do. In other words, I'm not posting a job, sifting through, 1,000 applications, where a lot of this can apply to increasing my efficiency. What I do is different. So that's my question for you is, do you have things laid out that's more applicable to that side of the recruiting house?
Bill, can I get you to do lead nurture or whatever you want to say?
I think lead nurture is where I would go with that. So we haven't really focused on the challenge of sourcing very much. So I think it's anyway. There are a lot of reasons why it hasn't been a focus for us. I think it's in part because we started our history as a company kind of more on that talent attraction side, and less so on the sourcing side. But what we're finding is that there's a shift on the internet. So candidates, there are very few places to reach candidates now. One of them is on the social networks. So I mean, they're basically kind of like 5 or 6 websites now that people go to. And if you want to reach candidates who aren't actively looking, you have to go to one of those 5 or 6 networks. But social's always been really difficult because if somebody's watching an Instagram reel and they already have a job, it's very difficult to pull them out of that reel and to get them right into a job application flow with the consequences. And so we're working with a few of our kind of enterprise companies that want to reach these passive candidates. They want to reach them with social, but what we do is we just kind of do a lead card capture. So they're watching Instagram reels. We talk a little bit about what an amazing place it is. I won't mention any of our clients to work at X bank. A candidate can just say, "Oh, that sounds interesting." We then have an AI that will engage with them on WhatsApp just to gather a little more information. They can upload a CV in the WhatsApp comment channel. They can upload a link to their LinkedIn profile, and we'll just try to see if there is if we do have a role kind of fits what they're looking for, that there's interest. But we do it, it starts with the social thing, but we just have an AI that just kind of picks that up afterwards. But I'd love to kind of build more sourcing tools.
Well, thanks. Bill Malcolm.
Yeah, I wanted to know what your thoughts were on obviously the newest craze out there, the public use of autonomous agentic AI. Now it's really kind of gaining leverage.
I won't even try, Bill.
You got this. I'm sorry. Is this kind of bots talking to bots? Is that the notion that a candidate would?
Yeah, it's bots creating bots, bots creating work, bots doing work, and bots creating companies.
Well, we are talking about human recruiting here.
Yeah.
This particular platform has set me straight. I think we're
it's
a good question. It's a great question about the future view, but I don't think that's a problem.
Well, the reason I ask is, the future's now. It's happening today.
But we're in a business of
So I won't dwell this. So we people talked about having empathy for people applying for jobs. So in that they're applying for 1,000 jobs, they're getting ghosted, they're not getting any feedback, and so I think it makes sense. So somebody applying for 1,000 jobs, they're also not really invested in any of those 1,000 jobs. You have a recruiter has 1,000 applications, they're only going to hire anyway. I believe we'll see agentic bots on the candidate side and the recruiter side that'll do some of that initial dancing to find out if there's a fit there before the humans intervene. Because I think there's so many just AI assisted application tools out there that make it so easy for a candidate to apply for 1,000 jobs. And you've got AI screening tools for recruiters that helps them sift through that. But I don't think we want a world where it's just bots talking to bots throughout the process.
No,
but I think we'll see kind of an agentic mating dance. So just some sort of and then.
I'm talking more about like the threat to the SaaS industry on people being able to build their own workflows to do these things, to basically vibe code a bot to do all the things you had mentioned before, the screening and the going out and evaluating a job description and ranking people and getting all the information, that type of stuff. That's extremely real and happening today.
Well, I mean, they're not going to solve the entire world's problems of technology. I would also say, look what's happened with everything that's going on. You still have 11,000 legacy SAP on-premise customers. You still have 20,000 plus legacy on-premise PeopleSoft customers. And with all the great technology in the world, we still haven't shifted them to a SaaS environment even. So, this isn't going to change some of those big numbers overnight. But I do like that they're very focused on keeping the human aspects in there. And we need a lot of empathy, especially in the TA space. So thank you guys for focusing on that.
Great. That's great to see so much chatter in the chat. I will end with just one final thought from us. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but AI doesn't make hiring less human. It actually does. It actually removes some of that cognitive workload or cognitive load. So volume actually makes it less human. And when recruiters are forced to scan hundreds of CVs under pressure, decisions become inconsistent, much more rushed, and sometimes unfair. And that's been the reality for years. That's what I used to say, traditional hiring, I didn't have a really impressive CV, but I made it here. So thank goodness I got picked by the right people. So used properly, AI actually removes some of that noise. It brings structure, it brings consistency, it brings explainability. And it actually gives recruiters back that they've been losing a lot of time for, long time for, which is time to actually be human. So here's the controversial part. I said this last week in an interview. Hiring actually will never be fully human again. And that I think is a good thing. That's progress because AI handles the scale and humans bring the judgment. And that combination is how hiring finally becomes much faster, much fairer, and more human than it's ever been. I will, if there are any final questions, we'll happily take, or any final comments. Here's a QR code for a bunch of really great thought leadership pieces or resources or customer stories or even demos and videos from Bill Fisher and from Tico and many others. So feel free to scan the QR code, reach out to us. If we can be of any help, we would be delighted to help. I'll open up for any final questions, comments, or David, Jeff, yourselves, if you want to say something, or Frank.
Well,
Great job.
Yeah, great job. I'll start just by
Thank you.
saying I think it's a courageous. You have to have some level of courage to operate in this market. I mean, I'm an old guy that built systems back in the 90s, and I can't imagine the speed and the pace, not just of the technology, but the regulatory environment around you guys. And look at the questions you got today, how educated we are. Like 10 years ago, this would have been a very different conversation. And now we've all got the tools that you've got. We have sort of leveled the playing field. And I think that takes some courage to operate in that environment with such transparency and try to, we used to call it building the airplane while you fly it. Well, you're doing that while everyone's watching you, like 100% transparency. And I just give you such high marks. And for us here, what we've been talking about is mastery. AI is not going to go away. And it's more than just adapting it from my POV. It's mastering it. It's leading it. It's understanding what VONQ is and how VONQ can fit into an ecosystem play at your client company who you serve. How all the tools that are available to us fit into that strategy, and how we as TA thought leaders can influence those outcomes. And so thank you for everything you're doing here, Ritu and team. Ken, you can have the last word.
All right, one quick question, Ritu. Can you comment on how adaptability is relative to companies being aggressive with AI and understanding it or getting it right? I mean, obviously your perspective and what VONQ is doing is really leading edge in my mind, right? At least from what I've heard today. And I know the US market's got all kinds of stuff going on, but I really don't know about the European side. And I'm curious, are there many other companies that are struggling? Are they tackling this? Are you guys, where do you think that falls?
I wish it was faster, Ken. So the speed is really there is momentum in Europe. There are progressive employers who realize it actually works to and strengthens the employer brand when a candidate is told this is an AI screening on behalf of Software One or on behalf of Deutsche Bank. It suddenly elevates their employer brand further. It makes them more progressive. It makes a fun organization. It creates a better employer brand. So there are organizations that are beginning to say, actually, I hate the word pilot. I hate it with passion. But the reality is it starts with a pilot and then it scales. And we're seeing that across Adecco, Software One, Decathlon, a Dutch supermarket, and Deutsche Bank, which actually is not scaling it right now due to some of these compliance reasons. They work with Workday, but they were our development partner. It doesn't get harder than that. A German company and a financial services bank organization. So given that they were open and had an appetite, I think Europe is ahead, if I may say. Maybe. And this year, the really big, I keep, sort of provoking all our customers is like, come on, pilots are dead. Stop doing pilots. Scale this, make this part of your workflow. And you'll see that you'll get better benefit out of this and you'll truly be able to see the proof points.
Yeah, they need to rip the Band-Aid off and give it a try.
Oh, gosh. Yes, indeed. And that's why courage is what we need. Yes. We
Leadership
need more
courage. I like it.
Absolutely.
Great way to finish. Ritu, again, Bill, thank you guys so much. Best of luck. We hope you'll come back in and give us an update from time to time.